was done by the other team, not you.
It's day 12 of the Israel-Hamas war, and the news keeps getting worse. Last night, a hospital was bombed in Gaza. Let me repeat that. A hospital was bombed. A building with innocent patients and doctors. More than 500 of them were killed, and the pictures are terrifying. You can see dead bodies strewn around, children and patients being pulled out from the rubble, and blood splattered over the debris. It's a crime that cannot be forgiven. But the question is, who did it? The answer depends on who you ask. Hamas and the Arab world are blaming Israel, but Israel says it was a Palestinian rocket strike gone wrong. Listen to this.
On the morning of the second day, the head of hospital, Dr. Maher Ayad, received a phone call from the Israeli army to tell him that we warned you yesterday by firing 2 strikes. He told the head of the hospital, "We warned you yesterday with 2 strikes. Why didn't you evacuate the hospital until now?"
I can confirm that an analysis of the IDF operational systems indicates that a barrage of rockets was fired by terrorists in Gaza, passing in close proximity to the El Hali Al Maadi hospital in Gaza at the time it was hit.
It's a classic blame game. But let's look at the facts available. The hospital was located in the heart of Gaza City. It's the oldest one in Gaza. It used to treat around 45,000 patients every year. Was it a military target? Absolutely not. But in the past, Israel has struck medical centers. We have numbers from the World Health Organization. They claim Israel has carried out 51 attacks on Gazan healthcare centers, 51 attacks in 12 days. Around 15 medics have been killed. So it's not unprecedented. Plus, the scale of the attack raises questions. Israel is blaming it on the Islamic Jihad. It's a terror group based in Gaza. But does this group have the firepower to carry out such an attack, to cause such damage, to flatten an entire hospital? According to some experts, it doesn't. But we know that Israel does. Now let's look at the other side. The Israeli Defense Force has released a comprehensive clarification. They have 3 claims. 1, Israel was not carrying out attacks in that area when the hospital was bombed. 2, they detected Islamic Jihad rockets at the same time as the hospital bombing. And 3, some communications. Communications that allegedly show Islamic Jihad talking about a misfire. That is Israel's defense. But have they provided any evidence for it? They have posted the video of a rocket strike. It's supposed to show a misfire. They've also released an audio conversation of Islamic Jihad terrorists. They're heard talking about a strike gone wrong. Now, I must tell you this. These have not been independently verified. Military experts have questioned their authenticity, but the Americans seem satisfied. Joe Biden blamed Palestinian groups for the attack. He said that Israel's claim was backed up by Pentagon data. But remember, the US is Israel's ally. So we'll have to wait for an independent investigation, because in conflict, you can never be sure. Israel has a history of attacking hospitals, and the other side has a history of rocket misfires. So it's too early to draw conclusions. And some leaders realize this. Others have been quick to place blame. Listen to all the responses.
I was deeply saddened and outraged by the explosion at the hospital in Gaza yesterday. And based on what I've seen, it appears as though it was done by the other team, not you.
What happened tonight is a huge tragedy and an ugly massacre that cannot be tolerated or allowed to pass without accountability. Tonight, Israel struck Al Ahli Hospital in Gaza City.
I call on all the people of the Arab and Islamic nations to go out now condemning this massacre, this brutality, these crimes. Go out in all the capitals, in all cities. Raise your voices for this enemy to stop.
There is no excuse for hitting a hospital full of civilians. All facts need to be established, and those responsible must be held accountable.
Что касается
Hundreds of dead and hundreds of wounded. This is, of course, a catastrophe. In one place, especially in a humanitarian place. And I really hope that this will be a signal that it is necessary to end this conflict as quickly as possible.
катастроф.
The Indian Prime Minister has also reacted. He expressed shock at the hospital attack. He also said civilian casualties are a serious and continuing concern, and that those involved should be held responsible. Now, this statement is very important. It shows that India's support also has red lines, namely civilian casualties. And it's not just India. Every country is worried about this trend. Israel has continued its air operations in Gaza. The death toll there has crossed 3,000. The complete siege also continues, meaning no water, no power, no food. This week, the US claimed that an agreement was reached on aid deliveries. Dozens of trucks were seen heading to Rafah. That's the crossing between Egypt and Gaza. But 24 hours later, they are still there. Those trucks are still there, stuck and waiting for permission. Over in northern Gaza, time is running out. Israel had asked residents to evacuate, but most of them simply can't. Northern Gaza had a population of 1.1 million people. Out of this, 400,000 have fled, 4 lakh people, they fled. Which means 700,000 people are still trapped in northern Gaza. They're sitting ducks if Israel invades. Yesterday's attack was an example of that, of the risk of staying in northern Gaza. Just one problem though, there is nowhere to go. Down south, resources are running out, hospitals and shelters are packed beyond capacity, and Egypt says they won't take any refugees.
The idea of displacement of Palestinians from the Gaza Strip to Egypt simply means that a similar situation will occur by the displacement of Palestinians from the West Bank to Jordan. This means that the idea of a Palestinian state that we are discussing and that the international community is discussing will no longer be possible.
I know all this must sound a bit repetitive, the airstrikes, the looming invasion, especially the looming invasion. We've been talking day one. But put yourself in the shoes of these people. Imagine their fear. Imagine how nerve-wracking it must be. Just sitting there waiting for a deadly invasion. They did not ask for any of this. It was Hamas that decided to poke Israel, to attack Israel. They knew the consequences, but they did it anyway. And now we are on the brink of an invasion. It may or may not happen. It may not happen today or tomorrow, in fact. After all, the US president is still in Israel. Invading Gaza while he is visiting may not sit well with Washington. But it could still happen. It could happen later. And that's when this war could reach the next stage of spillovers and escalations.